County Public Meeting, today, September 19th, 2017. To my left is Mo the roll, please.
Commissioner Jackson?
Here.
Commissioner Holland?
Here.
Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Commissioner Sharp?
Here. And
Commissioner Conchi is absent.
Absent and excused. Commissioner Holland, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Carl, are there any modifications to the agenda this morning?
No, there are no modifications.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Baker, seconded by Commissioner Holland. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. We have two sets of minutes to approve. The first one is August 22nd, and we had a full board. I'll entertain a motion for approval. Motion made by Commissioner Holland, seconded by Commissioner Jackson. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. The second set of minutes are from August 28th. We did have a full board again. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Commissioner Holland, seconded by Commissioner Baker. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. This is now our citizen comment period. If there's anyone who would like to speak during the comment period on anything that is not on our agenda this morning, other than the consent agenda, I guess I should say that, please step forward. Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Commissioner Holland, seconded by Commissioner Baker. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. We have two public hearing items today. P17007 Mountain View Gardens filing number 11, specific development plan, and P17008 Mountain View Gardens filing number 11, minor subdivision. And our presenter today is Mr. Jason Reynolds, current planning manager, Public Works and Development, and our attorney is Mr. Robert Hill, senior assistant county attorney. Mr. Hill, would you set the foundation, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This specific development plan and minor subdivision application has been properly noticed by mailing, publication, and posting of the property. The board has jurisdiction to proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Reynolds.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. This is a request for a rezoning from residential agricultural, which allows 2.41 acre minimum lot sizes, to a PUD. And this is the first step in our new two-step PUD process. And the name of the document that would establish the zoning is a specific development plan. Also accompanying the specific development plan is a minor subdivision that would create 3 lots plus a drainage tract. The proposal would take a property that currently has 1 house and allow up to 3 houses on it. Both Planning Commission and staff have found that through the review and public hearing process that it complies with the review and approval criteria for specific development plans and minor subdivisions, and are forwarding it with a recommendation of conditional approval. I would also like to point out that the members of the Board of County Commissioners have a packet of information. This was sent via PDF last night, and it summarizes some activity that happened in the last week. The staff received a number of emails from nearby residents, which are included in this packet. The emails expressed concerns about accessory dwelling units and detached garages. And in response to those emails, the applicant has amended their request for approval. And that is what's reflected on the amended conditions you'll find, or amended motions you'll find in this packet. The approval with applicant requested conditions is effectively for the specific development plan is basically what the Planning Commission recommended, with two minor changes. One, to eliminate the date reference in the Cunningham Fire Protection District letter, because the applicant had conversations with the Fire Protection District after April, and the Fire Protection District and the applicant agreed on some conditions that aren't reflected in the letter from April. So it just removes the date and says that the applicant will comply with Cunningham Fire Protection District requirements. The second change from Planning Commission is the applicant, in response to neighborhood input, is requesting that detached garages be explicitly prohibited within this zoning. And with that, I can turn it over to the applicant, but if the commissioners have questions, I'm available as well.
Commissioner Jackson. Thank you. I'll probably have some more to say and ask later, but are we going to hear some explanation of the stormwater situation? There has been in that area some issues around stormwater and so on, so are we going to hear what the plan is for that?
The applicant can probably address their stormwater design, and staff can also clarify if necessary. Okay. The short version is that the applicant's stormwater design was reviewed by both our engineering staff and other stormwater agencies, and they found that the design would be adequate for the stormwater that's expected.
Okay, and also, I guess I can ask you, but then perhaps the applicant will answer, but just a little more detail about the requirements with Cunningham and the fire department, and just kind of go over what those changes might be.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Ask the applicant to come up. Good morning.
Good morning. Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Michael Sheldon, 5340 South Quebec Street, Greenwood Village, 80111. I'm here on behalf of the Latzises for a small but an important project in the 4 square mile area. And about 9 months ago, we had a comprehensive plan amendment at the Planning Commission, which gave us the ability to have up to 5 lots on this 2.7 acre parcel, but we made a commitment to the Planning Commission back then, 9 months ago, that we would only seek 3 lots on this project, and that's what we're here for today. In the minor subdivision, it's 3 lots, and so we also had a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission most recently on these 2 proposals, both the rezone and the minor subdivision. And we've been in discussion with these neighbors about this particular project. The neighbors did raise the issue most recently at the Planning Commission about ADUs, alternate dwelling units. And although the zoning code would allow us to have a detached garage if necessary, we decided not to fight with the neighbors but to earn their support instead. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that there's not a lot of opposition here this morning, because we have decided to go along with that particular request, and that's why there is a new 4th condition proposed in your ordinance today that deals with that specific issue, that it would be prohibited to have a detached garage in this particular area. We have a short presentation that Jim Latsis would like to make to show you about the quality of what we're producing, the process we've gone through, including working through the storm drainage issues. And so I think the best thing to do is make that presentation now and be available to respond to any questions you may have. Thank you. Jim?
Mr. Latsis, if you just state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jim Latsis. I live at 8875 East Mexico Drive, Denver, Colorado, 80231.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to start by just going through a little slide presentation, telling you a little bit about our company. We're a small custom home builder, family-owned, and we started about 23 years ago. We've built the Parade of Homes in Stapleton in 2003. We've been building in Lowry, and as most of us, or most know, we've been building in the 4 square mile area for the past 20 years. Some of our accomplishments, which we'd like noted, is that we were at 2003 Energy Performance Award was given to our company. In as recent as 2016, we won the MAME Award for the best custom home under 5,000 square feet, and the CARE Award for best remodel in Denver. Here you'll see some of the homes that we've built throughout the 4 square mile area. You can see quite a diverse architecture style, from a ranch to a Mediterranean to a more contemporary flair. Here's another little development we did back in 2005. And this is near the, across the street from the mosque, actually, off Parker Road. It's a 5-home development that we finished in about 2008. The property that we are here for today is at 1683 South Uinta Way. It's literally probably 4 blocks from our current home down in Mexico. We've lived in our current home approximately 14 years now. It's a 2.7 acre site. There's existing infrastructure. The surrounding lots, so let's see if this, I'm not sure if this pointer would work. So it's kind of where the X is. This is the property that we're talking about here. The surrounding area, the lot sizes are between 1/4 and 0.4 acres. So the proposed lot layout in the comp plan amendment was presented showing here's where the existing home is. This pointer, I'm sorry. But you can kind of see the existing home closer to the canal and the proposed layout of 3 lots that we were discussing back in November. So the proposed minor subdivision plat, case number 17-007, kind of shows the lots again with a little more detail. Here you'll see there's a 30-foot utility easement on lot 2. Actually, it's a 30-foot water easement, excuse me. That 30-foot water easement was granted by the previous owner, Marine Keel, to produce the loop that was required by Cherry Creek Valley and Water for the Denver residents to the south of this property. The specific development plan shown here, we kind of have the proposed layouts of houses on the property as we see would fit. We have made quite a bit of progress with Lot 3. Lot 3 is now designed completely. And Lot 1 and 2 have not been through architectural, but are more conceptual at this time. The proposed architecture varies a little bit from a French country, say, to a modern prairie. We also have a little bit of a contemporary flair on Lot 1, as shown to your left. So that's pretty much a little bit about us, about what we've done. I will mention that in addition to our own personal residence, I've built both of my brother's homes in the county. My brother Nick's a fireman with South Metro Fire Rescue, and my brother George, who lives literally 2 homes away from us. And Nick's lived there 12 years, and George has been there 16 years. So, in 4 square mile, excuse me.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Mr. Alexis? Commissioner Jackson. Yes, could you, as I mentioned earlier, could you expand a little bit more on the drainage situation, or should I have staff go into the technical? What do you think?
I could speak to it, or I could let our engineering explain more technically. I could tell you a little bit about it if you'd like to.
Sure. Why don't you start, and if we have more questions, then we'll...
Yeah, okay. So tract A that you'll see in front of Lot 3. So when we first looked at the site, a drainage study is conducted, and initially because this property is as part of a joint development agreement with the Denver property, we were trying to tie into their storm facility, because they have put in a storm facility, a detention area that ties in through a pipe that goes under the canal and comes out on Quebec Way. We discovered early on that not only had the developer of the Denver property not considered this lot in its drainage study, but that the pipe that was sized for their development was just for their development. So our engineers, and with cooperation with SEMSWA and Arapahoe County, looked at the numbers and the calculations, and we all agreed that the pipe was not large enough to let our drainage tie into theirs. So we were requested to look at alternative solutions. We looked at some to the north of us that weren't feasible because we would have to push water uphill. We also looked at what other types of solutions could be done through SEMSWA, looking at some forms of detention, retention, and it was suggested to us through SEMSWA that we look at a grass buffer. This facility here is a grass buffer that allows us to drain safely onto that tract A. And part of it is due to the great infiltration of the soil that exists there. This is a very sandy soil. So because we're only building 3 houses on such large lots, what engineers look at is the impervious surface. How much water is going to come off of driveways and roofs to impact the area? So because we have such large lots, the water would disperse, percolate into the soil, and the impact that would be presented to the drainage area is minimal enough that it can be handled in this tract A with the grass buffer. Yes.
What is downhill, if you will, from the grass buffer?
The Highline Canal. And we're not allowed to drain to the Highline Canal, and we've been through that with Denver Water. Denver Water has approved our design. And there is a level spreader, and there's a little bit of detail to it in the engineering. And Donna from J3 is here if you would like to ask her some more technical information than what I've explained.
Commissioner Jackson. Yeah, I guess part of what I was getting at is because the drainage in the 4 square mile area is idiosyncratic, we have we've heard some cases in which the drainage went into a neighbor's yard. So if we have one of those horrible floods, let's hope we don't, but we have had floods, I wanted to find out, in the worst case scenario, what would happen if it overflowed. And so I guess your answer of it going into the Highline would be the worst case scenario.
Yes, because the pond is designed for a 100-year storm. And again, I think Donna or Sue could probably answer more technically if you don't mind. Okay. Donna with J3 Engineering.
Hi.
Good morning.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Donna Barentine, professional engineer with J3 Engineering. Our address is 6505 South Paris Street, Centennial. So to answer the drainage question, the flows from these three proposed lots will all be captured in swales that run, one's on the north side of the property boundary, one is on the south, so all the drainage is collected in the drainage swales and brought down to the grass buffer in Tract A. There will be no overflow from these lots to adjacent properties. They're collected there. And then once we get a storm greater than 100-year runoff, it will be captured in that grass buffer and then proceed to overflow into the Highline Canal.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Baker.
Sorry, before you sit down,
Ms. Barentine.
we're talking, you used the term grassy,
Grass buffer?
grass buffer. Is it technically a detention or retention pond?
No.
Okay, so
It's
not that big.
best management practice for stormwater quality and treatment and enhancement of the water prior to overflow to the Highline Canal.
Thank you.
Any other?
Commissioner Jackson.
Not stormwater, something else.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Good with that. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. But I do have another question for our applicant or experts. There was mention of a negotiation with Cunningham Fire. Could you elaborate on that
sure.
and tell us what that was about?
Oh, sure. So we walked these properties with Cunningham Fire, and we were discussing the hydrants and their locations, and the Lot 3 came up that the fire department was a little concerned as to how to get to the back side of Lot 3. And even though there's fire hydrants on Hawaii Lane, which is, I'm not sure if this pointer will work. Well, it's kind of that keyhole up at the top there. The fire department was concerned that if they get a call, they would have to come down Uinta Way, and wanted to be able to get to the furthest backside of Lot 3, which is towards the canal. And they have a 150-foot rule that they use with their fire hoses. It was suggested to us that during construction, they wanted a road that would basically be the permanent driveway to the house to drive a fire truck onto. And we agreed to that road. And when we saw there's a manual that the fire department uses for the road and what's required, it said that it should be paved. And one of the questions I had was, it would be terrible to pave a driveway during construction and have it all torn up and then have to tear it out and redo it again in 9 months. So our engineers proposed a recycled concrete drive that the fire department approved, and they would use that as a temporary driveway should the house under construction catch fire. They could drive to it and get their equipment to it. So it was more in cooperation with what they needed, so that when during construction the house could be protected from fire.
Okay. So that as a follow-up, so the long-term solution, this is only a temporary during construction. From when the houses are constructed, Cunningham had no problem with this accessing this particular
No,
house.
and we also...
Because it'll be a driveway.
Correct. It'll be a driveway, and the driveway, also the design of the driveway, will be somewhat different than your standard home. We typically put 4 inches of concrete. We'll do 6 inches of concrete with rebar.
Okay.
So that if a fire truck, I think they weigh about 80,000 pounds, needs to drive onto the property, they'll be able to. They're concerned they don't want to drive onto the dirt.
Okay. Other questions? I just had a quick question. We're going to hear from anyone who's signed up to speak. But so were the detached garages or dwelling units the primary issue that you heard from neighbors? Were there any other issues that have not been resolved?
We don't believe so. So the original intent from us on the ADU is several. When we built our home at 8875 East Mexico, we have an office above our garage. And when I turned in for the building permit, I was told that I couldn't have a bathroom up there, so we had to eliminate it from the plans. And I asked why, and they said, well, because it could be construed as an apartment. So it was my intent that if we have plans, my wife and I, Catherine, to build on the second lot for ourselves. And the thought of building another building above our garage for our office is appealing to us. And we wanted to kind of eliminate that obstacle. So we had asked if, A, we could have an ADU or a structure above a garage, whether it be an office, a mother-in-law's apartment, a caretaker's quarters. The last 3 years I've dealt with both of my parents passing away and having to take care of them in our home. And multi-generational living is very accepted today by many jurisdictions and many codes. And what we were asking for is not already in the code. Our code in Arapahoe County talks about ADUs and talks about detached garages. So we were asking for something that already exists, and there's still 3 houses on the property. The number of houses doesn't change, or residences, and we thought we were conforming or complying to what's already in the code. Our neighborhood already has detached garages, and ADUs already exist in the neighborhood. But it seemed to become a point of contention for our neighbors, and we felt that there's ways to build and design our home without detaching the garage, so we felt it wasn't worth the battle. And there's ways that we can put a bedroom or for my mother-in-law, if need be. She's getting up there in age, without having it attached or detached. It could be part of the house. So instead of trying to explain all that and how it complies with the code, it seemed like that it would just be better to forego that battle and just move on.
Okay.
I hope I explained that correctly.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay. So any further questions for the applicant or their, at this point, or staff? Okay. So I will open the public hearing to hear from, and I'm going to combine both of these. I'm going to read these. So P17-008 Mountain View Gardens filing number 11 minor subdivision, as well as the Mountain View Garden P17-007 Mountain View Gardens filing number 11 specific development plan. So when you come forward, please feel free to speak on either of these items that are up for public hearing today. So the first person I have, and some individuals did not sign up whether they wanted to speak or not, or whether they were for or against. So I'll ask, and then if there's anybody else who didn't sign up, I'll have the opportunity to do that as well. So I've got Jim Neely. Yes, sir. Would you like to speak? Okay. And were you for or against this? For. Okay. And let's see. I have Dave Stratton.
I'm neither
Okay. Would you like to speak? Yeah, welcome. Come on up. And if you just state your name and address for the record, and we've got a couple of little lights here, and it gives about 3 minutes, and that yellow light will come on at 2.5.
Okay. My name is Dave Stahlheim. I live at 8422 East Oregon Place, and if I may,
This is my house right here. And my concern is...
Sir, if you, we need you to come back to the microphone.
The swale here.
Okay.
We've talked, I'm going to be a neighbor of Jim's.
it sounds like it's going pretty well. We've had some discussions right now in that swale area at the north end between my house and lot number 3. The Highline Canal on the east side of the Highland Canal is a major thoroughfare for wildlife from the Cherry Creek State Park going north. They travel through there. We have small herds of deer. We have 5 or 6 coyotes. We have a population of rabbits which provide food for the deer, not for the deer, but for the coyotes and the owls and the hawks. And that swale is going to require, there's a tree buffer area there. It's full of Russian olive, it's full of pines, and other kinds of trees. And it's about 30 feet wide, and it runs all the way from the detention pond over to Hawaii Circle there. And that's where the rabbits live. It's their habitat. And there is tall wheat grass there in where the detention pond is, and it provides cover for the rabbits and the coyotes. The proposal that was heard by the Planning Commission, in your literature you say that you consider the impact on wildlife. But I haven't heard any statement from the county or the builder about the impact on the wildlife. If you do that swale there on the north side of Lot 3, you're going to have to remove all those trees, all that habitat for all that wildlife. You remove the rabbits, the coyotes won't come, and the hawks and the owls won't come. They'll all move out of that area. That's what's happening with this development, is you're eliminating the wildlife. All we're going to have is cars, people, and dogs. And so I would like to hear from the builder, what are you going to preserve as far as that habitat for wildlife? That's my big question.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay. And I have Margaret. Is it Halpern?
Actually, Hefner. It's
Hefner.
I'm Margaret Hepner. I live at 1573 South Uinta Way, just a few houses down from this proposed development. I've been there for 45 years. This neighborhood has been in a very difficult and long battle in the last several years. Perhaps you've heard some of it. We've been trying very hard to work together as a community, and we very much appreciate that the Lattices have changed their language in this. We would also like to respectfully request that they agree to not have any outbuildings, not just named garages, but barn or any kind of exterior building, which then would compromise what we consider to be the plan that we approved. The neighbors got behind the Lattices. They gave an open house last October. We all went down, and they had very detailed drawings. And everyone said, wow, they've done a really good job. 3 houses, even though there's only 1 there now. And there are properties right there. The Hood's property is almost 6 acres. And my property is 1 acre, and I have another house there, which is 7.7 acres. So I'm very invested in the neighborhood. And we would like to see that there is a provision where there are no additional buildings, but limited to the 3 buildings. We appreciate that the garages would be attached, but we would also like to make sure that there is no additional outbuildings. And when the amendment to the 4 square mile went through last November, most of the neighborhood spoke against it, but the Planning Commission decided to go ahead and approve it over the objections of the neighborhood. So we would like to just try to maintain as much as we can the feeling of rural living there, where as Dave talked about the wildlife, and it's a very unique parcel, and there's nothing like it in Denver. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hebner. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this issue? Hi, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mark Lampert on behalf of 4 Square Mile, 9022 East Colorado Drive. I come here because of the fact that it has been a contentious weekend over this issue, and we have looked at this and appreciate both sides working to resolve what I think is a pretty fair compromise at this moment. The issue has been, as you heard, from a maximum of 5 homes down to 3, which is what we always encourage. Because as you recall, and some of the newer commissioners know, that 4 Square Mile was formed because it was a dumping ground of high density, low quality development. And from that standpoint, that's what formed the 4 Square Mile area. So what we're always looking for is quality development by quality developers. We believe we have that here. However, the issue, as you heard from Margaret, is that this whole neighborhood has been very contentious in dwelling units and sizes and everything like that. Now we're down to basically detached or attached garages. So the idea is that we definitely would like to see the fact that there are no additional buildings other than normal play structures or something like that, because of the fact that the preserving of the rural neighborhood in an urban corridor is what we all basically like to see. So we are looking on behalf of the 4 Square Mile to see that the attached garages are definitely in the plans. Also, that there are no barns or out structures other than possibly play structures or any type of small utility sheds that would follow the code for the county. So those are the things that we're basically looking for. As far as the drainage is something that is a definite problem. There's no question. We will know in time whether the plan is going to make do with what the overflow is, because we know that the 100-year flood that we have comes about every 5 to 7 years. And so the idea is what happens to that. And as we know, we've experienced neighbors being flooded out because of that. So the concept is that we'll have to take a wait-and-see attitude on the drainage. But by and large, I think that with the conditions that are before you and the possibility of adding that other condition that no other outbuildings be added would be acceptable to all from the 4 Square Mile. And one minor note that I would mention, this being one of the first projects to go through this new plan process, it is taking a little bit of experience to see all this in a little bit of time. So it is something that, again, I think time will tell whether this is going to be beneficial to not only the residents but also to the developers as well. So we'll wait and see. So thank you.
Thank you. Good to have feedback on that as well, on the process. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak during public comment? Yes, ma'am. Come on down. Welcome. You just state your name and address for the record, please.
Lois McPhee, 1593 South Uinta Way. We've been there for about 40 years,
okay,
a little more. We got stuck in traffic, so we couldn't sign in. But we support the plan as it is now, compromised too. Just wanted to, they've done a good job. They're good neighbors.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I will see no one. I'll close the public hearing. I think we did have a couple of, there may be additional questions for the applicant as well as staff, but so I'm not sure who is best. I have two things, which is the trees and the habitat, and then the concern about outbuildings, barns, etc. And so who would be best? Okay, Jason.
Jason Reynolds with Planning. I may be able to address the habitat. This was referred to the Colorado Division of Wildlife, who expressed no objections to the proposed designs, which addresses the wildlife question. I think as far as the swale design, the developer may be best to respond to that, as well as to the comments about limiting outbuildings.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I guess we'll talk about the trees.
Yeah, Mr. Lassett, if you would address both of those, the removal of the trees and in general the habitat, and then the outbuildings and your position and what should be confirmed on that.
If we look back, first of all, I want to point out that you can see that in all the examples of the homes we've built in the county, we've preserved trees. I'll refer you to that house we built 3 years ago, just down the street. We preserved many large trees and fit the house around the trees. And you'll see that many trees were preserved or planted. I also live in that neighborhood and love the animals and love the wildlife and the trees. So for having built there for over 20 years, I think I have set an example. This is the cul-de-sac. You can see that the one side to the right, Butts Parker Road, had no trees. We planted trees. So in our plan, we have our landscape plan. We talk about the minimum number of trees that each lot can have. And then if we have to remove trees, we have to replace those trees. I'll also point out that if we go to this example, there are swales on both sides of the property because we do have to go to the drainage track. That drainage tract, the swales are 14 feet in width, and they're very shallow. They're not very deep. So probably some grubbing will have to occur to accomplish the swale, but I think there's ways to work within some of the existing trees because the swale is only 14 feet wide, and preserve the larger pine trees and some of the larger trees that these animals live in. So it's not really our intent to displace anything, but to work together in harmony as we have with all our other examples that we've done in the county for the past 20 years. As I stated earlier, the intent, many of our neighbors have, and I don't have pictures, have detached garages. They're hobbyists, whether it's a wood shop, cars, whatever. We didn't feel that a detached garage was really a big deal. It's still one residence, one address. Apparently our neighbors feel differently. It's okay for them to have detached garages, but not for us. It's okay. We are acceptant of that. So we did not push that issue in terms of having a detached garage. So we agreed to attach our garages. And we felt that we could work within those guidelines. If we wanted to have a mother-in-law's apartment or a room in our home for our mother-in-law, we could do it within the confines of our home. So I think we conceded there, so I think that's a non-issue, really.
And that would include, one of the references to outbuildings was barns and things like that. Play structures, what I heard, were okay, and small utility sheds are, and I don't know if that
I'm sure a small utility shed to store a lawnmower would not really be considered a house or a structure or a building or a play structure, or I don't know, maybe if you had a swimming pool and you had a little pump house, I'm sure that would be okay, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Maybe that needs to be written down, but
if barns would even be something that would be allowed in this area and on these size lots.
So typically with accessory buildings, if you're doing a shed that is smaller than 120 square feet, that does not require a building permit and is therefore not considered to be a structure per our code. But the way the recommended condition of approval is written, it only prohibits garages. So, for example, someone would have put in a lap pool and wanted to have a dressing room adjacent to the lap pool that was larger than 120 square feet. The way that the conditions are written in the motions, that would be allowed. And I will point out that the neighbors are requesting that be disallowed, that the only things that be allowed are things that are smaller than 120 square feet, or pergolas, covered patios, things of that nature. Most of the county, or actually I should say all of the county's zone districts do allow accessory structures. They're generally limited in square footage to about 1,000 square feet. I can look up the actual code if that becomes important, but it's highly unusual to prohibit accessory structures.
Okay. Questions? I'm sorry, I actually closed the public hearing, but I don't know, Commissioner Jackson, do you have any questions? I guess one of the things I'm hearing are barns, but I didn't hear if somebody wants to put in a pool and they want to put in a little cabana type thing or changing, that would be an issue. So, Commissioner Jackson.
I guess, excuse me, my comment would be that an accessory barn or something like that would be of such a size that they would have to come back for, a building permit or go through some sort of process. So I think that, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Jason or someone can clarify that, or our attorney, but it seems to me that the neighbors are concerned of some other kind of building that would sort of look like a detached garage or look like an apartment dwelling. I mean, something of that size is the way I'm interpreting it, because they said, a play kind of thing, a storage shed would be okay. So let's just clarify that in the size of which they would have to come back and
I'm concerned about
get approval.
Prohibiting, if somebody wants to put a pool in, prohibiting
me too.
A structure that would be compatible with a pool, prohibiting that when that's allowed.
Right. So let's get the square footage kind of clarified maybe, and I'm also a little wary of going into too much detail in terms of those kinds of things, but let's hear what our experts say.
Certainly. Thank you, Commissioner. So our accessory buildings definition says that if a building is smaller than 120 square feet and lower than 10 feet in height, it gets special consideration. The other thing that it says about accessory buildings is that unless it's for agricultural usage only, which this is not, the structures may not exceed 10% of the lot area or a maximum of 1,000 square feet, and the structures would have to be no larger than 15 feet high. So, all of these lots are greater than 10,000 square feet in area, so they could all have slightly more than 1,000 square feet of accessory structures if the motions are adopted as written. And so in the pool house example, you could have an 800 square foot pool house next to the pool under the zoning that is being proposed.
Yeah, Commissioner Jackson.
do we have anywhere a prohibition against this kind of smaller? Nobody's proposed anything, so it's sort of like a hypothetical. Do we have anywhere in our either 4 square mile or other districts where they have this kind of restriction?
In the county standard zone districts, accessory buildings are explicitly allowed, and you'll often see them in the zone district tables as accessory uses that are allowed in the zone district, which is a roundabout way of saying no. I'm not aware of zone districts that prohibit accessory buildings.
So if we put something in this that suggested that whatever alternative uses might be thought of, that would be unusual.
It would be, although this is a planned unit development request, and if the applicant is amenable to that restriction, then it could certainly be clarified as a condition.
Well, let's hear from the applicant, because I'm a little confused about this, because it is out of the ordinary.
Mr. Sheldon.
Thank you, ma'am. So we've, over the weekend, made an additional agreement with the neighbors to give up what the code allows, which is a detached garage. We've done that. We don't want to have any additional conditions that the code doesn't permit. I think you've covered it with your code on these smaller auxiliary things, and you already have that in place. Next, the neighbors might ask us, what color we should paint the houses or these kinds of things. You have these things in place. We think we've negotiated in very good faith, and we believe the 4 conditions that staff is proposing covers it all. We have a unanimous recommendation from Planning Commission, and we hope and expect that the county will allow this high-quality project, a few more $1 million homes in this area, to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Are there any more questions for staff or for the applicant? Okay. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Commissioner Jackson.
Sure. Just for clarification, we have 2 motions, 007 and 008. Which one goes first?
7.
That makes some kind of sense. Okay. So, P17-007 draft motion. Staff has prepared the following motions to assist the board. Oh, I don't have to read that. Okay, here we go. In the case of P17-007, Mountain View Gardens filing number 11 specific development plan, I have reviewed the staff report, including all exhibits and attachments, and have listened to the applicant's presentation and any public comment as presented at the hearing, and hereby move to approve this application based on the findings in the staff report, subject to the following conditions, and there are 5. 1. Prior to the signature of the final Mylar copy of the specific development plan, the applicant shall address the Planning Division, Mapping Division, Zoning Division, and Engineering Services Division comments and concerns as outlined in their reports. 2. The applicant shall meet requirements of the Cunningham Fire Protection District. 3. The applicant shall include mosquito control with the operations and maintenance manual for stormwater facilities. 4. Any accessory dwelling unit built on the 3 properties must be attached to the main structure. The attached accessory dwelling unit will share the same driveway as the main structure. And 5. Detached garages are prohibited. All garages must be attached to the main structure.
Madam Chair.
I will second that motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Holan. Any further questions, discussions? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Conti is absent and excused. And that concludes the business part of our meeting.
I've got another motion.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself there. Yeah. Commissioner Jackson, second one.
Thank you. I just want to say as a comment that I do appreciate the citizens that are here tonight. I know that I've seen many of you at the 4 Square Mile meetings, and you are very involved and care very deeply about the community, as you should. And so I really appreciate you coming here today and working with the developer and working with the Laxis Development Company to come up with an agreement. 4 Square Mile is a very special area, and it's hard to see change sometimes, but I do appreciate what you've done in neighborly collaboration. So with that, I'm going to read the final motion of the day.
Commissioner Jackson.
In the case of P17008, Mountain View Gardens filing number 11, minor subdivision, I have reviewed the staff report, including all exhibits and attachments, and have listened to the applicant's presentation and any public comments as presented at the hearing, and hereby move to approve this application based on the findings in the staff report, subject to the following conditions. And there are again 5. Prior to the signature of the final copy of these plans, the applicant shall address all public works and development staff comments. 2, the applicant shall meet requirements listed in the Cunningham Fire Protection District letter dated April 17, 2017. 3, the applicant shall include mosquito control with the operations and maintenance manual for stormwater facilities. 4, the applicant shall pay a total amount of cash in lieu of $16,020.66 to be distributed as follows. Schools, $8,352.30. Public parks, $7,361.63. And other public uses, $306.73. 5, approval of this minor subdivision is conditioned on provision for future maintenance of the stormwater drainage facility to be located on Tract A. In lieu of requiring that a homeowners association be created to own Tract A and perform the maintenance, and in order to assure the long-term maintenance of the facility, maintenance of the facility is assigned to the owner of Lot 3 and Tract A, and said Lot 3 and Tract A shall be deed restricted so as to remain in common ownership.
Motion made by Commissioner Jackson. Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second that motion as well.
Seconded by Commissioner Holand. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. And again, Commissioner Conte is absent and excused. And this time, apologize, just moving ahead too quickly. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your comments and working with the developer. So thanks again. And are there any commissioner comments? Okay. Seeing none, meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Better.